Dibrey ha'Yamim2, 2Chronicles, chapter 33. Menashsheh was 12 years old when he began to reign, and he reigned 55 years in Jerusalem. But he did evil in the eyes of Yahuah, according to the abominations of the Gentiles whom Yahuah dispossessed from before the children of Yisrael. For again he rebuilt the high places which Yoshiyahu his father had broken down, and raised up altars for the Baals, and made Asherim, and bowed himself to all the host of the heavens, and served them. And he built altars in the house of Yahuah, of which Yahuah had said, "In Jerusalem is my name forever." And he built altars for all the host of the heavens in the two courtyards of the house of Yahuah. And he made his sons pass through the fire in the valley of Ben Hinnom, and practiced magic, and used divination and witchcraft, and consulted mediums and spiritists. He did much evil in the eyes of Yahuah to provoke him. And he placed a carved image of the idol which he had made in the house of Elohim, of which Elohim had said to David and to Shlomo his son, "In this house and in Jerusalem, which I have chosen out of all the tribes of Yisrael, I put my name forever, and no more shall I remove the foot of Yisrael from the land which I have appointed for your fathers, only if they guard to do all that I have commanded them, according to all the Torah and the laws and the right rulings by the hand of Moshe." Thus Menashsheh led Yahudah and the inhabitants of Jerusalem astray, to do more evil than the Gentiles whom Yahuah had destroyed before the children of Yisrael. And Yahuah spoke to Menashsheh and to his people, but they did not listen. Therefore Yahuah brought upon them the commanders of the army of the sovereign of Ashur, who captured Menashsheh with hooks, bound him with bronze shackles, and made him go to Babel. And when he was in distress, he sought the face of Yahuah his Elohim, and humbled himself greatly before the Elohim of his fathers, and prayed to him. And he was moved by his entreaty, and heard his supplication, and brought him back to Jerusalem into his reign. And Menashsheh knew that Yahuah was Elohim. And after this he built a wall outside the city of David on the west of Gihon in the Wadi, and as far as the entrance of the fish gate, and it went round Ophel, and he made it exceedingly high. And he put army commanders in all the walled cities of Yahudah. And he removed the foreign mighty ones and the idol from the house of Yahuah, and all the altars that he had built in the mount of the house of Yahuah and in Jerusalem, and he threw them out of the city. And he built the altar of Yahuah, and brought peace offerings and thank offerings on it, and ordered Yahudah to serve Yahuah Elohim of Yisrael. But the people were still offering on the high places, though only to Yahuah their Elohim. And the rest of the acts of Menashsheh, his prayer to his Elohim, and the words of the seers who spoke to him in the name of Yahuah Elohim of Yisrael, see, they are written in the book of the sovereigns of Yisrael. And his prayer and his entreaty, and all his sin and his trespass, and the places where he built high places and stood up the Asherim and the carved images before he was humbled, see, they are written among the words of the seers. So Menashsheh slept with his fathers, and they buried him in his own house, and his son Amon reigned in his place. Amon was 22 years old when he began to reign, and he reigned 2 years in Jerusalem. But he did evil in the eyes of Yahuah, as his father Menashsheh had done. And Amon offered to all the carved images which his father Menashsheh had made, and served them. And he did not humble himself before Yahuah, as his father Menashsheh had humbled himself, for Amon trespassed more and more. And his servants conspired against him, and killed him in his own house. But the people of the land smote all those who had conspired against sovereign Amon, and the people of the land appointed his son Yoshiyahu to reign in his place. Dibrey ha'Yamim2, 2 Chronicles, chapter 34. Yoshiyahu was 8 years old when he began to reign, and he reigned 31 years in Jerusalem. And he did what was right in the eyes of Yahuah, and walked in the ways of his father David, and did not turn aside right or left. And in the 8th year of his reign, while he was still young, he began to seek the Elohim of his father David. And in the 12th year he began to cleanse Yahudah and Jerusalem from the high places, and the Asherim, and the carved images, and the molded images. And they broke down the altars of the Baals in his presence, and the sun pillars which were above them he cut down, and the Asherim, and the carved images, and the molded images he destroyed, and ground them up, and scattered it on the graves of those who had offered to them. And he burned the bones of the priests on their altars, and cleansed Yahudah and Jerusalem, and in the cities of Menashsheh and Ephraim and Shimon as far as Naphtali, in their ruins all around. And he broke down the altars and the Asherim, and ground the carved images into dust, and cut down all the sun pillars throughout all the land of Yisrael, and returned to Jerusalem. And in the 18th year of his reign, when he had cleansed the land and the house, he sent Shaphan son of Azalyahu, and Maaseyahu the head of the city, and Yoach son of Yaho'ahaz the recorder, to repair the house of Yahweh his Elohim. And they went to Hilkiyahu the Kohen Hagadol, and they gave the silver that was brought into the house of Elohim, which the Levites who kept the doors had gathered from the hand of Menashsheh and Ephraim, and from all the remnant of Yisrael, and from all Yahudah and Benjamin, and which they had brought back to Jerusalem. And they gave it in the hand of the workmen, those appointed over the house of Yahuah. And they gave it to the workmen who worked in the house of Yahuah, to repair and strengthen the house. And they gave it to the craftsmen and to the builders, to buy hewn stone and timber for couplings and for beams for the houses which the sovereigns of Yahudah had destroyed. And the men did the work trustworthily, and over them were appointed Yahath and Obadiah the Levites of the sons of Merari, and Zechariah and Meshullam of the sons of the Kehathites, to oversee, and of the Levites, all of whom were skilled in instruments of song, and over the burden bearers, and overseers of all who did work in any kind of service. And of the Levites were scribes, and officers, and gatekeepers. And when they brought out the silver that was brought into the house of Yahuah, Hilkiyahu the Kohen found the book of the Torah of Yahuah given by Moshe. Then Hilkiyahu responded and said to Shaphan the scribe, I have found the book of the Torah in the house of Yahuah. And Hilkiyahu gave the book to Shaphan. And Shaphan brought the book to the sovereign, and brought the sovereign word, saying, All that has been given into the hand of your servants they are doing, and they have poured out the silver that was found in the house of Yahuah, and have given it into the hand of those appointed and the workmen. And Shaphan the scribe informed the sovereign, saying, Hilkiyahu the Kohen has given me a book. And Shaphan read it before the sovereign. And it came to be, when the sovereign heard the words of the Torah, that he tore his garments. And the sovereign commanded Hilkiyahu, Ahikam son of Shaphan, and Adon son of Micha, and Shaphan the scribe, and Asaiah a servant of the sovereign, saying, Go, inquire of Yahuah for me, and for him who is left in Yisrael and in Yahudah, concerning the words of the book that is found. For great is the wrath of Yahuah that is poured out on us, because our fathers have not guarded the word of Yahuah, to do according to all that is written in this book. Then Hilkiyahu and those of the sovereign went to Huldah the Neviah, the wife of Shallum son of Tokath, son of Chezrah, keeper of the wardrobe, who was dwelling in Jerusalem in the 2nd quarter. And they spoke to her about this, and she said to them, Thus said Yahuah, Elohim of Yisrael, say to the man who sent you to me, Thus said Yahuah, See, I am bringing evil on this place and on its inhabitants, all the curses that are written in the book which they have read before the sovereign of Yahudah, because they have forsaken me and burned incense to other mighty ones, to provoke me with all the works of their hands. Therefore my wrath is poured out on this place and is not quenched. And to the sovereign of Yahudah, who sent you to inquire of Yahuah, say this to him. Thus said Yahuah, Elohim of Yisrael, whose words you have heard. Because your heart was tender and you humbled yourself before Elohim when you heard his words against this place and against its inhabitants, and you humbled yourself before me, and you tore your garments and wept before me, I also have heard, declares Yahuah. See, I am gathering you to your fathers, and you shall be gathered to your grave in peace, so that your eyes would not see all the evil that I am bringing on this place and its inhabitants. So they brought back word to the sovereign, and the sovereign sent and gathered all the elders of Yahudah and Jerusalem, and the sovereign went up to the house of Yahuah with all the men of Yahudah and the inhabitants of Jerusalem, and the Kohanim and the Levites, and all the people, both great and small. And he read in their hearing all the words of the book of the covenant, which had been found in the house of Yahuah. And the sovereign stood in his place and made a covenant before Yahuah to follow Yahuah and to guard his commands and his witnesses and his laws with all his heart and all his being, to do the words of the covenant that were written in this book. And he made stand all who were present in Jerusalem and Benjamin, and the inhabitants of Jerusalem did according to the covenant of Elohim, the Elohim of their fathers. And Yoshiyahu removed all the abominations from all the lands that belonged to the children of Israel, and made all who were present in Israel diligently serve Yahuah their Elohim. All his days they did not turn away from following Yahuah Elohim of their fathers. Dibrey ha'Yamim2, 2 Chronicles, chapter 35. And Yoshiyahu performed a Pesach to Yahuah in Jerusalem, and they slaughtered the Pesach on the 14th day of the first month. And he appointed the Kohanim in their duties, and strengthened them for the service of the house of Yahuah, and said to the Levites, who were teaching all Yisrael, who were Kodesh to Yahuah, put the Kodesh ark in the house which Shlomo son of David, sovereign of Yisrael, built. It is no longer to be a burden on your shoulders. Now serve Yahuah your Elohim and his people Yisrael, and prepare by the fathers' houses according to your divisions, by the writing of David, sovereign of Yisrael, and by the writing of Shlomo his son. And stand in the Kodesh place by the divisions of the fathers' houses of your brothers, the lay people, and the portion of the fathers' house of the Levites. And slaughter the Pesach, and kadosh yourselves, and prepare for your brothers to do according to the word of Yahuah by the hand of Moshe. And Yoshiyahu gave the lay people lambs and young goats from the flock, all for Pesach, for everyone present, to the number of 30,000, and 3,000 cattle. These were from the sovereign's possessions. And his leaders contributed a voluntary offering to the people, to the Kohanim, and to the Levites. Hilkiah and Zechariahu and Yehiel, leaders of the house of Elohim, gave to the Kohanim for the Pesach 2,600 and 300 cattle. And Conaniah his brothers, Shemayahu and Nethanel, and Chashavyahu and Yael, and Yozavad, chiefs of the Levites, gave to the Levites for Pesach offerings 5,500 cattle. And the service was prepared, and the Kohanim stood in their places, and the Levites in their divisions, according to the command of the sovereign. And they slaughtered the Pesach, and the Kohanim sprinkled out of their hands, while the Levites were skinning. And they removed the burnt offerings to give them to the divisions of the fathers' houses of the lay people to bring to Yahuah, as it is written in the book of Moshe, and the same with the cattle. So they roasted the Pesach with fire according to the right ruling, and they boiled the Kodesh offerings in pots and in cauldrons and in bowls, and brought them speedily to all the lay people. And afterward they prepared for themselves and for the Kohanim, because the Kohanim, the sons of Aharon, were offering burnt offerings and fat until night. So the Levites prepared for themselves and for the Kohanim, the sons of Aharon. And the singers, the sons of Asaph, were in their places, according to the command of Dawid, and Asaph, and Amon, and Yeduthan, the seer of the sovereign. And the gatekeepers at each gate did not have to leave their position, because their brothers the Levites prepared for them. And all the service of Yahuah was prepared that day to perform the Pesach and to offer burnt offerings on the altar of Yahuah according to the command of sovereign Yoshiyahu. And the children of Israel who were present performed the Pesach at that time and the festival of Masoth for 7 days. There had not been a Pesach performed in Israel like it since the days of Shemuel the Nevi, and none of the sovereigns of Israel had performed such a Pesach as Yoshiyahu performed with the Kohanim and the Levites and all Yahudah and Israel who were present and the inhabitants of Jerusalem. In the 18th year of the reign of Yoshiyahu, this Pesach was performed. After all this, when Yoshiyahu had prepared the house, Necho, sovereign of Mitzrayim, came up to fight against Carchemish by Parath, and Yoshiyahu went out against him, and he sent messengers to him, saying, "What have I to do with you, sovereign of Yahudah? I am not coming against you this day, but against the house with which I am fighting, for Elohim commanded me to make haste. Leave Elohim alone, who is with me, lest he destroy you." However, Yoshiyahu would not turn his face from him, but disguised himself to fight against him, and did not listen to the words of Necho from the mouth of Elohim, and came to fight in the valley of Megiddo. And the archers shot at sovereign Yoshiyahu, and the sovereign said to his servants, "Take me away, for I am severely wounded." And his servants took him out of that chariot and put him in the second chariot that he had, and they brought him to Jerusalem. And he died and was buried in one of the tombs of his fathers. And all Yahudah and Jerusalem were mourning for Yoshiyahu. And Yirmiyahu lamented for Yoshiyahu. And to this day, all the singing men and the singing women speak of Yoshiyahu in their lamentations, and made it a law in Israel. And see, they are written in the laments. And the rest of the acts of Yoshiyahu and his kindness, according to what was written in the Torah of Yahuah, and his acts from the first to the last, see, they are written in the book of the sovereigns of Israel and Yahudah. Dibrey ha'Yamim2, 2Chronicles, chapter 36. And the people of the land took Yaho'ahaz, son of Yoshiyahu, and appointed him to reign in his father's place in Jerusalem. Yaho'ahaz was 23 years old when he began to reign, and he reigned 3 months in Jerusalem. And the sovereign of Mitzrayim turned him aside in Jerusalem, and imposed on the land a levy of 100 kikars of silver and a kikar of gold. And the sovereign of Mitzrayim made his brother Eliakim sovereign over Yahudah and Jerusalem, and changed his name to Jehoiakim. And Necho took Yaho'ahaz his brother, and brought him to Mitzrayim. Jehoiakim was 25 years old when he began to reign, and he reigned 11 years in Jerusalem. And he did evil in the eyes of Yahuah his Elohim. Nebuchadnezzar, sovereign of Babel, came up against him, and bound him in bronze shackles to take him away to Babel. And Nebuchadnezzar brought some of the utensils from the house of Yahuah to Babel, and put them in his temple at Babel. And the rest of the acts of Jehoiakim, the abominations which he did, and what was found against him, see, they are written in the book of the sovereigns of Israel and Yahudah. Then Jehoiakim his son reigned in his place. Jehoiakim was 8 years old when he began to reign, and he reigned in Jerusalem 3 months and 10 days. And he did evil in the eyes of Yahuah. And at the turn of the year, sovereign Nebuchadnezzar sent and brought him to Babel with the valuable utensils from the house of Yahuah, and made Zidkiyahu, Jehoiakim's brother, sovereign over Yahudah and Jerusalem. Zidkiyahu was 21 years old when he began to reign, and he reigned 11 years in Jerusalem. And he did evil in the eyes of Yahuah his Elohim. He did not humble himself before Yirmiyahu the Nevi, who spoke from the mouth of Yahuah. And he also rebelled against sovereign Nebuchadnezzar, who had made him swear by Elohim, but he stiffened his neck and hardened his heart against turning to Yahuah Elohim of Yisrael. Also, all the heads of the Kohanim and the people trespassed more and more, according to all the abominations of the Gentiles, and they defiled the house of Yahuah, which he had kadosh in Jerusalem. And Yahuah Elohim of their fathers sent to them by his messengers, rising up early and sending them, for he had compassion on his people and on his dwelling place. But they were mocking the messengers of Elohim and despising his words and scoffing at his Nevi'im, until the wrath of Yahuah arose against his people, until there was no healing. Therefore he brought against them the sovereign of the Kazdites, and he slew their young men with the sword in the house of their Mikdash, and had no compassion on young man or maiden, on the aged or the weak. He gave all into his hand. And all the utensils from the house of Elohim, great and small, and the treasures of the house of Yahuah, and the treasures of the sovereign and of his leaders, all these he brought to Babel. And they burned the house of Elohim, and broke down the wall of Jerusalem, and burned all its palaces with fire, and destroyed all its valuable utensils. And those who escaped from the sword he exiled to Babel, where they became servants to him and his sons until the reign of Paras, in order to fill the word of Yahuah by the mouth of Yirmiyahu, until the land had enjoyed her Shabbatot. As long as she lay waste, she kept Shabbat, until 70 years were completed. And in the first year of Koresh, sovereign of Paras, in order to accomplish the word of Yahuah by the mouth of Yirmiyahu, Yahuah stirred up the spirit of Koresh, sovereign of Paras, so that he called out in all his reign, and also put it in writing, saying, Thus said Koresh, sovereign of Paras, Yahuah Elohim of the Shamayim has given me all the reins of the earth, and he has commanded me to build him a house in Jerusalem, which is in Yahudah. Whoever is among you of all his people, Yahuah his Elohim be with him, and let him go up.